Hello, welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy this fan-submitted story written by Jerome Schlicker.
Principal's Revenge. First would like to introduce myself. My name is Jason Burnsville, or I used to be. I'm 14 years old and now going by the name of Amanda Jennifer Burnsville. Let's say that for a boy I was on the smaller side at 5 foot 2 inches, and even my mother was taller than me, as well as most of the girls in my class. My mother's name is Michelle Burnsville, who is gorgeous by the way, with her long strawberry blonde hair, and is 35 years old at 5 foot 10 inches. My mom is raising me by herself because my dad left my mom for some bimbo, as she put it. I found out later that he ran out on us for his 19-year-old secretary. My story begins at Rockville Central School when I entered the 7th grade. When my mother dropped me off at school at 7:30 a.m. before going to work just a couple of blocks away at the Rockville police station. Before she drove off, she asked, "Do you have your phone and is it fully charged?" I told my mom that it was fully charged. She said, "Call me if anything happens that I should know about, or if there is any kind of trouble." I said to her that I would, and headed towards the front door. When the doors opened at 8 o'clock, I went in and saw that our junior high school principal, Mr. Charles Montgomery, was waiting, with the school's Dr. Everett Stoner, and the school nurse, whose name is Emily Berg. With them were 2 other men who I didn't know. The principal put his hand on my shoulder and the 2 men grabbed me, and as they did, I heard a hissing sound and my vision started to become blurry and I passed out. When I woke up, I saw what looked like an IV drip dripping into my arm. I was in a daze. I looked for my phone and called my mom. "Mom," I said when I walked into the school, "the principal as well as the school's doctor and nurse injected me with something that caused me to pass out. Now there's something dripping into my arm." She said to me over the phone, "Honey, look around you and tell me if there are any more." I looked around and said to her, "Mom, there are 4 more in the trash can next to me." Her response is as follows: "I will be there in a few minutes. I won't be coming alone. I need to know, are you in the nurse's office?" "I am," I replied. "Stay there until I get there." "Yes, Mom." I must have passed out again, because my mom was shaking me. I asked her, "Who are those 2 men with you?" as she saw me looking at them putting on rubber gloves. "Jason, these gentlemen are officers from the crime lab. This officer with the reddish hair is Officer Jerome Jackson, and the other one is Officer James Pierce, who has auburn hair, both in their mid-50s, I think. MAAM. I just scanned the QR code and it reads as Organic DNA Nanotech. All 5-liter bags have the same QR code. Jason, any idea where your principal is right now? Maybe his office?" I questioned. "Alright, I will start there. I just noticed the time," I told my mom, "and I am going to be late for math class," and without thinking I sprinted to math class. As I rushed into Mr. Thomas's math class, he was writing an equation on the board, and he did notice me coming, and he said, "Mr. Burnsville, you're late." I told him why I was late, and he said, "You're lying to me, so what's the real reason you're late?" "I told you the truth, sir. Ask my mom, who is looking for the principal right now. If that's so, then you're going to do this equation here." I started to pick up the chalk to do the math problem on the board. I said, "Yes, sir." Suddenly a sharp pain hit me, and I crumpled to the floor. The pain started around the lower midsection and spread throughout my entire body. A voice came from the back of the classroom saying, "Hey everyone, from here it looks like he's growing tits." And everyone started laughing except Mr. Thomas. He walked around Jason to see what he was talking about, and sure enough, it did appear to be the case. While Mrs. Burnsville was looking for the principal, she ran into the school superintendent, Charles Walker. She asked him if he might know where the principal was. His reply was no. Superintendent Walker asked her, "Why are you looking for Principal Montgomery?" "Because he injected my son with organic nanotech." "Where can I find Mr. Thomas's math class?" she inquired. "2 doors down on the left," he said. "I'll go with you." As the door had not yet been closed, the superintendent and Mrs. Burnsville stood at the open door unnoticed, as they heard the comment made by the person in the back row. Mr. Thomas was about to call the nurse's office when a young woman with blonde hair by the name of Jennifer Brady walked up to him and dumped a bunch of maxi pads and tampons on his head. She proclaimed to Jason, "I always thought you were a bit of a sissy." Superintendent Walker made a call to her mom. "Mrs. Brady, your daughter." Before he could say another word, she yelled, "What has she done now?" He explained the situation and she told him that she will be picked up after school lets out by her father. Mr. Walker, we told her if she gets into trouble one more time, that she will be transferring to St. Margaret's Academy for Girls. My husband will bring her new school uniform with him, plus she's been enrolled in the nursing program that they have. Then he called Mr. Marcus Anthony SR and explained what he witnessed, and he said I was going to come by to inform the school that he is being transferred to Bayside Academy and he will have a new uniform to wear there and has been enrolled in the nursing program there. Superintendent Walker knows both schools are full-time boarding schools. Superintendent Walker clearing his throat, and Mr. Thomas asks him, Superintendent Walker, what brings you to my class? He said nervously. Miss Brady, I just got off the phone with your mom. Your mom told me just now that your father is going to pick you up after school. Mr. Thomas have her grades ready by the end of the day. He looked puzzled. May I ask why? So I may forward her grades to her new school. I said to Miss Brady, I just got off the phone with your mother, and after school lets out your father is taking you to St. Margaret's Academy for Girls. Your father is bringing your new school uniform with him. Mr. Anthony, your parents are picking you up as well, they are sending you to Bayside Academy. Your parents will bring your new school uniform with them. Miss Brady, I was told your new uniform consists of one white dress, white tights and Mary Jane shoes. You will be sent back to 6th grade according to your mother. Also, your parents have enrolled you in the nursing course there. Mr. Anthony, your parents have enrolled you in the nursing program at Bayside Academy as well. Because of your bad behavior and grades, you will also be starting in the 6th grade. Mr. Thomas said I will send their grades to the office as soon as class is done. I am letting both of you know that both schools are boarding schools where you will live there 24/7. Plus these schools have classes Monday through Saturday, he said with no hesitation. Mr. Burnsville, let's get you checked out by the school's doctor. No! I yelled through the pain. Why not? Mrs. Burnsville asked. Jason told them because Dr. Stoner and the school nurse had done this to me. Right along with Principal Montgomery. You mean Charles Montgomery is the school principal, she hissed through gritted teeth. Mom? Where is the miserable vro? My mom said. Superintendent Walker asked my mom what she was talking about. You see, the V word that I just used is Klingon. You see, Jason, Burnsville is my married name, my maiden name was Michelle Montgomery, and the principal is your uncle. My uncle? I asked. Do you think you can walk back to the nurse's office, or do you need a stretcher? No, I will manage. When Jason got back to the nurse's office a few minutes later, he seemed to be a little taller. Just lie here and rest, Jas, which is a term my mother calls me when I am sick. Officer Pierce came into the nurse's office, and said, Ma'am, I have done some checking, and the use of DNA nanotech is expressly forbidden and carries a term of 25 years in prison for each liter used according to the AMA and the CDC. Superintendent Walker said, I want you to find Charles Montgomery and Dr. Everett Stoner and the school nurse Emily Berg and place them under arrest. They are immediately fired. I will go tell Miss Slaughter that she will be the new junior high school principal. By the way, Jason's clothes are starting to tear apart. Jason got out of his ripping clothes under a blanket. Jason, my mom said I am going to the office for a few minutes, will you be okay, honey? All I said was yes, Mom. Mrs. Burnsville walked into the office and asked, when is Jennifer Brady's last class and what subject is it? The secretary looked up and saw a woman in a police officer's uniform and said, why do you need that information, ma'am? Just as Superintendent Walker and Miss Elena Slaughter walked in. Superintendent Walker said to the secretary, give Officer Burnsville the information she asked for. Yes, sir, was her only reply. The secretary said to her, her last class is English and it starts at 2 p.m. according to the computer. Thanks, I said. By the way, the teacher's name is Mr. Alexander Poe, she added. Both the ladies in the office had giggled at the irony of an English teacher with the last name of Poe. With your permission, Mr. Walker, I will escort Miss Brady to the office. By all means, came the reply from Superintendent Walker. I will have Officers Pierce and Jackson escort Mr. Anthony to the office after his last class. Miss Slaughter said of course, by all means, was her reply. Superintendent Walker asked what was Mr. Anthony's last classes, and without hesitation she said science. Who is his teacher? He asked. She looks on the computer and said James Newton. Mrs. Burnsville, though, to herself, does the school hire teachers whose last name matches up with the certain subjects? I will inform the two officers that are with me, of the situation, and to be back in at his science class at 2:45 p.m. Meanwhile back at the nurse's station Jason had grown considerably to 6 foot. Mrs. Burnsville checked in on her son only to find what looked like a beautiful woman with strawberry blonde hair lying there. Then it hit her like a ton of bricks, it was her son. Somehow the nanotech changed her son to a daughter. Mom, Jason said in a higher pitched voice, I'm hungry because of this incident. I missed lunch. As she said that, they heard a growing stomach. Michelle Burnsville said, I will try to send you something to eat. Miss Slaughter, my son wants something to eat. Will that be possible? Jason will need something to wear as well. What do you mean? My son is now my dot. She is about your height. Oh, I see, I have a spare track suit he can borrow. It dawned on her, she said, daughter. I don't understand. Miss Slaughter questioned. Please get the track suit and I will show you what I mean. Okay. A few minutes later Miss Slaughter came into the nurse's office and saw what she meant. Jason, try this on first. If it fits, it's yours. Thanks, I said to Miss Slaughter. At 2:45 Officer Burnsville and Officers Pierce and Jackson were in position. A girl whose name is Amanda Beatrice spoke up and said, Mr. Poe, why is there a policewoman outside the door? Mr. Poe looks towards the door and says, I don't know. As Mr. Poe opened the door and asked, Can I help you, officer? Yes, I am here to escort Miss Brady to the principal's office. Alright Miss Brady, what's going on? After a brief explanation from the officer, Miss Brady, get out of my classroom now. After a 5-minute walk to the principal's office, Jennifer saw her father and was in shock. Dad, what are you doing here? I think you already know that answer, young lady. A few minutes later Marcus Anthony was escorted in and just hung his head. Hi Dad! Their dad said in unison, here is your new school uniform. They also said, if you don't put it on in the next 5 minutes I will dress you like a baby. Because of your bad behavior and grades you will be required to wear a diaper underneath your tights as was indicated by the schools you will be attending from now on. 5 minutes later both dads were pulling their children out of school by the ear. After the school day was done, Amanda, who is one of Jason's friends, came into the nurse's office to see how Jason was doing. Except for a noticeable difference in height and gender, he or she was doing good. Jason, I will always be a friend no matter what. Thanks, I said. Along with myself and a few of my friends we will give you as much help adjusting to being a girl. That's a nice gesture, Amanda, and thanks for not saying that I was Jason's mom while you were in class. No problem, and you're welcome, Mrs. Burnsville. Miss Slaughter chimes in, I will add the women's health class to her classes. Miss Slaughter said the women's health class is taught by Miss Samantha Honeybee. Amanda asks Jason, have you thought about a girl's name yet? Amanda, I've been thinking about that as soon as I realized I changed genders, and from now on call me Amanda Jennifer Burnsville. Amanda said that my mom is about your new height and I believe I can convince her to give you some of her old clothes. Amanda Jennifer, my mom said, I am glad you got such good friends like her. Thanks, Mom. The next day came and everyone from teachers to students wanted to know who the new girl was. On the way in, Miss Slaughter noticed that 3 students made a grab for Miss Burnsville's butt cheeks. Attention, everyone came over the PA system. This is Principal Slaughter and this morning's announcement are as follows. My being the new junior high school principal is the first thing. Secondly, the senior high school doctor and nurse will be covering both the junior and senior high school students. At lunch yesterday I noticed that there's a lot of students who have been bullying other students. This will stop immediately, and I contacted all but 2 parents and got their permission to invoke discipline. This will include everything from petticoating to spankings. This will go for everyone from teachers and students alike, no exceptions. Plus he or she will receive in-school suspension for a month. Finally, at the end of the day the following students will report to my office. James Spears, Alexander Mason, and Michael Caesar. Amanda went to her first class of the day. Her first class was Social Studies, which is taught by James Anderson. Mr. Anderson took roll call as usual. He called the name of each student by their last name only. When he called out Burnsville, I answered, "Here, sir." Mr. Anderson said to me, "Are you any relation to Jason Burnsville?" I told him when I came in this morning. Miss Slaughter told me to say nothing, and for any teacher who asks that question I am to them to see her. His reply was, "Okay, I will see here after class. Now let's get to work, shall we?" I was also informed about my second study hall was dropped in order to attend the women's health class. With each class I informed each teacher of this, and some of them said they already have been informed at the office when they clocked in this morning. At 3:05 p.m. those 3 students showed up in the office and saw their parents. Miss Slaughter said in a cold voice, "For your behavior this morning all 3 of you will be petticoated for the next 30 days. Before these students left the office, their mothers started the petticoating by putting them in a dress that just went past the knees. The 3 students then went out with their moms. Amanda had met up with her friends and she explained the situation and went to her house. Mom! Amanda Peterson shouted. Up here in my room, she shouted back. Could you please wait here? I went upstairs to my mom's room and explained what happened to Jason and asked her if she could get some of her old clothes for her. Mrs. Peterson said of course we can take her some of my older clothes. Anything to help out. Mom, you said we didn't you? Yes I did, darling. Mrs. Jessica Peterson rang the doorbell and Amanda Jennifer Burnsville answered it. Hello Mrs. Peterson, Miss Burnsville said. Mom, this is Amanda Jennifer Burnsville now, she used to be Jason Burnsville. What can I do for you Mrs. Peterson? She asks. My daughter told me some of what happened yesterday. She also asked me if I could give you some of my old clothes, so I bring a selection to choose from. Thank you so much Mrs. Peterson. Amanda said, here are some of my other friends from school. A girl who introduced herself as Marion Lynn, another girl introduced herself as Wendy Griffin, the third girl said she was Amy Oppenheimer, the fourth person introduced himself as Randy Morris. I said hi everyone. I called my mom to ask if they could come in. She said it was fine. Sorry about that, but in our house I have to get permission to let anyone in when my mother isn't home. Mrs. Peterson said, I understand. Is she still on the phone with you? Yes, I said. Can I speak with her please? I heard what she asked you Amanda, so please hand her the phone honey. Okay, I replied while handing her the phone. Hi Mrs. Burnsville, this is Mrs. Peterson. I know you are at work so I will make this brief. My daughter Amanda asked me if I could give her friend some of my old clothes. I said yes. If you need anything done around her, don't be afraid to ask. Thanks, my mom said over the phone. Maybe when you get home we could do a fashion show for you. My mom replied that it would be fun to see. When they were done talking, my mom reminded me to do my homework before anything else. Do I make myself clear? Yes ma'am, I said over the speaker. Mrs. Peterson said that goes for everyone. We all started our homework in about 90 minutes. We were finishing up. Just as they finished the homework assignments, Mrs. Burnsville walked through the door. My mom exclaimed, hello everyone! After proper introductions they all started to show me how to mix and match fashions and the basics of how to apply makeup, and we all ate dinner. After dinner, we said our goodbyes to each other. Amanda, Mom says you must have had a long day today, so for now leave the dishes in the dishwasher and tomorrow I will run the dishwasher before we leave in the morning. Okay Mom! Now go get a good night's sleep. Thank Mom, and sweet dreams to you as well. In the morning I was up first and did my morning routine and then started the dishwasher after my mom did her morning routine. I was dropped off at school wearing a flowered skirt dress with white tights and a pair of low-heel court shoes. I was too scared to try putting on makeup by myself, so I went without any. After third period I saw my mom in the hallway and asked what's going on. She told me that her brother showed up this morning and asked Miss Slaughter why she was in his office. Miss Slaughter was told to get out of his office and get to where she belongs. She went into the hallway and called us. I can't say anything else. His mother wanted to tell me everything but couldn't. 6 other officers came out of the principal's office with his uncle in handcuffs. All Amanda said was, I see. Then Dr. Stoner and the old school nurse were brought out in handcuffs as well. MAAM, these two told me that changing your son was all Mr. Montgomery's idea, because he thought by transforming him it would cause you anguish. They both said that they would testify to that in court. Mrs. Burnsville asked her brother a simple question. Why would you do that? I wanted to hurt you the way our parents hurt me. They told me a few years ago that they only liked and wanted you. According to Mom, I was their unwanted mistake. Charles Montgomery, I didn't know that. I thought they loved us both equally. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but they didn't, Michelle. At 4 p.m. there was an arraignment in court for Charles Walter Montgomery. The judge asked him, how do you plead? His lawyer pleaded him guilty. Mr. Montgomery, as in accordance with the laws of the state on the guilty plea, I am going to sentence you to a maximum of 75 years in prison for your crimes. Records show that if everything you have is sold off and the money in your accounts will come to an even $5 million. $3 million will go towards your sister and her child, and the rest will be used for your incarceration. It is so ordered by this court on this day of September 20th, 2022. The next day, Officer Burnsville was out on patrol when she came upon an accident. The car she came across was a Ford F-Series with 2 people inside the truck. She called it in, and an officer from the traffic accident squad was dispatched immediately. Officer Larry Adams arrived on the scene within 10 minutes. He ran the license plate number and found out it belongs to her ex-husband Jason Burnsville Sr. Mrs. Burnsville assumed that the woman passenger was the bimbo he ran off with many years ago. After she completed her patrol and all the paperwork that went with her job, the chief of police asked her to his office. She told him, "As soon as I file my report, sir." Officer Pierce filed this paperwork. "Yes, sir," came an immediate reply. A gentleman in a high-priced suit asked me, "Are you Michelle Burnsville?" I told him yes. "Well, I'm Mr. Holmes. I represent your husband's insurance company, and if you will sign here on this line and initial here, and you could receive the inheritance you have from your late husband." I signed the papers where indicated, and he handed me a very large briefcase. He then walked out to his car in the parking lot and drove off. I opened up the briefcase to find a letter explaining that he never changed his will to include the woman he'd run off with all those years ago. In the case was $10 million, which was all hers. Even the taxes were paid beforehand. The chief said, "What do you plan on doing now?" "Sir, I still plan on working here. I'm going to pay off a few bills and put the rest in the bank. Plus I will use some cash to go shopping for me and my daughter Amanda." The chief said, "I thought you had a son." My response was, "My brother used organic nanotech and turned him into a girl in every sense of the word. Considering everything that has happened in the last few days, why don't you take a couple of days off, but only if you want to?" With that I said, "Good night and I will see you tomorrow." "Good night," he told me, and I went home. As Amanda was getting dinner ready, which was spaghetti and sausage, she hears the front door open and her mom walks in and says, "Hi Amanda." "Hi Mom," Amanda replied back. As she puts the briefcase down on the table and takes a large amount of cash and puts it into her purse, Mrs. Burnsville asked, "What smells so good?" "Mom, tonight I made spaghetti and sausage, and I made a light salad with French dressing." "Sounds good. Oh, by the way honey, after dinner you and I are going to go shopping for a few things that you're going to need. First of all, we are going to go to the mall to get you measured for your first bra." "Okay Mom." We ate dinner quickly and headed to my mom's car. When we got to the mall parking lot, she told me that earlier today she saw my father. "When and where?" I asked. "I came across his truck while out on patrol today and it was smashed and he was killed." A look of sorrow came across her face. "I'm sorry Amanda, but he was out of our lives for a long time now." "True. Now Amanda, what store do you want to hit first?" "I don't know," Amanda said. "You choose Mom." "Alright, we will start at J.C. Penney's." We went in the main door and the first thing was the makeup counter and jewelry section. There we bought some perfume and a few necklaces and bracelets. Then we went to the second floor and to the intimate section. My mother approached the sales girl and asked her to measure me for my first bra. "Okay," your mom said, "Need a new bra?" "Yes," I said nervously. The sales lady said, "Come with me please." "Don't you know your own bra size?" she inquired. "No ma'am, you see a few days ago I was only 5'2". "Oh, a growth spurt "Yes." "Well, don't worry, I can measure you up." As she took the measurements down, she then went over to a computer and put the information in the display read 38DD. After the reading I ended up with 6 regular lace bras and 4 sports bras. Next we bought 3 packs of panties size 8. My mother got a few for herself. After paying for everything she told me that since we were here we might as well do our weekly shopping. "Alright," I said. We walked across the street to Walmart and grabbed the weekly groceries, and then went to the women's department and got a few things like dresses and some ankle socks and a pair of open-toe sandals and a pair of 2-inch high-heeled court shoes for me. Mom picked up a few blouses and jeans for both of us. After we paid for everything and left the store, she told me to wait by the entrance and she went to get the car. As I was waiting for her, A guy approached me, and as my mom pulled up and got out to open the trunk, she heard him say, "Hey! Nice, why don't you come over to my place for some fun?" "And what do you mean by fun?" At that moment Officer Pierce was patrolling the mall area and saw what was going on. With her badge around her neck and her gun in her hand, she told him, "Sir, you are under arrest." "Are you kidding me? Sir, you are under arrest for trying to proposition a minor." "Bullshit," he said. "Sir, I assure you that I am a policewoman and she is only 14 years old." Officer Pierce in his uniform and asked, said Officer Burnsville, "What's going on here?" Officer said, "This person just propositioned my daughter." After he was read his Miranda rights and was told the charge, Officer Pierce asked him if he wanted to make a statement. "Yeah," he said, "I want my lawyer." Officer Burnsville told him to take him to booking. Officer Pierce put him into the back seat of the squad car and drove over to the station and took him to booking. We loaded up the car with our purchases and headed towards home. Before we left for home, my mom says, "Amanda, I will let you know that's the worst part about being a woman." "You mean dealing with creeps like Thash says?" "Yes," Mom said. "By the way, Mom, today a few of the guys from school tried to grab my ass cheeks." "What?" she said angrily. "As I was walking into school, 3 students I once considered my friends grabbed my behind in front of Miss Slaughter." "Oh, I see, these same people did it to others during lunch, I found out." "Amanda, tomorrow when I drop you off at school I am going to talk to Miss Slaughter about this." "Okay Mom, let's go home please." "Sure thing, honey." When we get home, and everything was inside, we put everything away. The outfit that I decided to wear to school is a pastel blue dress with white tights and the 2-inch black leather court shoes. Then I went to bed. For tomorrow is my birthday and I want it to be a perfect day. When I got up, my mom had breakfast ready for me and said, "Happy birthday, Amanda." "Thanks Mom," I said. As I walked in I got so many compliments from the girls, and those who really knew me said happy birthday. My mom made a beeline for the office asking to see Miss Slaughter. The secretary looked at me and rang the buzzer. "Miss Slaughter, Officer Burnsville is here to see you." "Alright, send her in. What brings you into my office?" "My daughter Amanda told me about some students making a pass at her." "Mrs. Burnsville, yes, and I have talked to their parents about it. They have to attend school in dresses and take their classes and in school suspension." "Ma'am, I can handle anything that can happen here. Ma'am, I was for 10 years a drill sergeant in the United States Marine Corporation OIC. When I was here yesterday you could have mentioned it to me." "Miss Slaughter, can I talk to them please?" "Mrs. Burnsville, you seem upset about something, what is it?" "Last night Amanda and myself went shopping and this pervert tried to pick her up like some cheap prostitute. Now learning about this she said that would upset anyone." Miss Slaughter answered. "Well, the 3 students have to come in the office and be inspected. Come with me please, let's inspect them together, shall we?" "Okay with me." "Great, let's go." They head into the outer office and the 3 boys were standing there in their pretty dresses looking all girly. Miss Slaughter begins. "Boys, this is Officer Burnsville and she arrested a man last night who was like you, an ass grabber." All 3 boys swallowed hard. "I hope this punishment straightens you out. I hope it does so I don't have to arrest you in the future. Ma'am, I have to get to the station." She tips her hat to Miss Slaughter and turns around and leaves. Amanda's first class of the day is Social Studies, which is taught by Mr. C.J. Rockefeller, and the subject matter for today is the U.S. Constitution and her amendments. Second class of the day was Health class and is taught by Mr. Snow. My third class is by Mrs. Emily Jones and it is study hall. Then it was lunchtime. Fourth period of course is math class under the control of Mr. Thomas. Today we learned about percentile fractions. Fifth period class is history and 5E teacher's name is Mr. Smith. Sixth period was gym class in which was swimming. I really felt weird wearing a woman's swimsuit. My last class for today is taught by Miss Honeybee, who was standing in front of her classroom as her students filed inside. Welcome ladies to Women's Healthcare, I am your teacher Miss Honeybee. Let me say that this is going to be a good year, and you ladies will learn more about yourselves than you know. The first thing you will find out is that a lot of guys will see you only as a sex object, to be used. Others will see you as a person and friend. As Miss Honeybee said this, Amanda just shakes her head. "Amanda, what's wrong?" Miss Honeybee asked. "Well, last night me and my mom were out shopping and this guy tried to pick me up as if I were a common whore. My mother and her co-worker arrested him. Amanda, I heard something about it on the news this morning. He also said that that was a setup. Carol Brader said, why is Jason Burnsville in this class? What do you mean? Well, Miss Honeybee, the person who you called Amanda is really Jason Burnsville. Everyone looked at Amanda and Amanda said, well, the old Principal Montgomery used organic DNA nanotech to transform me into Amanda. If you want more information about it, please see Miss Slaughter. Most of the class looked stunned. Amanda, I want to ask you something. Ask anything you like, but I may decline to answer. Fair enough, was Miss Honeybee's reply. Amanda, if you could go back to being your male self, would you? And how do you feel about being transformed? Amanda responded to her question as follows: first, I really haven't thought about how I feel about it, and if I can get back to being my old self and keeping my new height, that would be ideal. If I can't go back to my old self and have to remain a woman, I guess I will just have to deal with it the best I can. Ma'am, the worst part about all this is it was done by my own uncle. Yeah, our old principal is my uncle on my mother's side of the family. Miss Honeybee said that's rough for anyone. Amanda, I would like to talk with your mom when it is convenient for her. Alright, I will have my mom come in for a parent-teacher conference. Amanda, I also want you there as well. Amanda, if you need to talk about anything while you are at school, I will be there for you. I understand, came her reply. After the class was over and her students were heading out, a commotion started in the hallway and Amanda and Miss Honeybee saw the old principal and another person. Principal Montgomery! Miss Honeybee shouted while Amanda pulled her cell phone out and quickly dialed her mom. Mom, get to the school quickly because Uncle Montgomery is her right along with that creep from last night. Her response was, I am already at your school and be right there. Hurry, Mom! A minute later, Officer Burnsville and Miss Slaughter come charging up the stairs and start taking them down with ease. Officer Burnsville tossed her brother against the wall and slapped the cuffs on him. Miss Slaughter pounds the other one into submission and holds him there until another officer got there. 2 minutes later, Officer Jerome Jackson arrived and placed him under arrest again. Officer Burnsville, while they were being transferred into the marshal's custody, they made a break for it, and we thought that they would come here. As Officer Jackson was reading them their rights, the marshal's service showed up to take them into their custody. Officer Pierce showed up along with the police chief. The chief said, we got a court order to search the home of one Jamie Crimson and found over 200 tapes of porn, and the judge gave him an additional 250 years in addition to the 10 years on the original charges. Anything else I should know? Officer Burnsville asked her co-workers, is there anything else I should know about? As we were starting to escort the two prisoners out of the school, she heard Amanda says, yes Mom, Miss Honeybee would like to talk to both of us. Miss Slaughter said, I will join this meeting as the principal. Mrs. Burnsville asked, is this going to be in your classroom or office? Either one is fine with me, she stated. Well, my classroom is right here, come on in, Mrs. Burnsville. In just a moment, but first I am going to tell the chief something. Okay, came a reply. Chief, after I talk to Miss Honeybee and get statements from the witnesses, I will file all my paperwork at the station. I won't be long, she tells him. Ladies, I will need a statement from everyone who witnessed it. Officer Burnsville took down everyone's statements and went into the classroom along with her daughter Miss Honeybee and Miss Slaughter. Alright Miss Honeybee, what's on your mind? Well, she started, I am surprised that you didn't ask your son, now your daughter, how she felt about what happened. Well, I have made an appointment for her to be thoroughly examined by her doctor. I have explained to her what happened, and she will be examined at her appointment tomorrow at 2 p.m. Oh, I see, Miss Slaughter and Miss Honeybee said in unison. Miss Honeybee told Officer Burnsville, I asked him earlier today if he could go back to being a young man, would he want to? Her response was, if he could keep the new height and be the man she was born as, that would be ideal, but if she can't go back, she would deal with it the best she can. Miss Honeybee, her doctor, is even going to run a DNA chromosome check. Miss Slaughter asked her to send a copy of the medical records of this upcoming examination so we have a complete record for the official school records of her health and well-being. Okay, said Mrs./Officer Burnsville. Amanda, honey, I will see you after work. Remember to do your homework when you get home. I will, Mom, Amanda said. Mrs. Burnsville, if Amanda needs anything or someone to talk to, she can count on me. Same here, Miss Slaughter chimes in. Thank you, Mrs. Burnsville said to them both. Both Amanda and her mother leave, and as Amanda heads home and Officer Burnsville heads to the police station to do her paperwork, which includes filing. Saturday afternoon, Amanda and her mom went to the doctor's office and checked in. Alright miss, first I am going to draw some of your blood for the DNA chromosome test. Now she told Amanda that I am going to listen to your lungs and heartbeat. I want you to take a deep breath in and out. Okay, your vitals are good, and your weight is 145 pounds overall, in great shape. Now the only thing we are waiting on is the lab work. I will call you when we have the results. Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Mrs. Burnsville asked Dr. Roberts, well, how is she? She is in perfect health, and I will call with the lab results as soon as I get them. As they head out, she paid the bill and left for the car. Amanda, her mom, asks, what do you want to do with the rest of the day? Amanda thinks for a few minutes and said, let's go see the Avengers movie. Maybe we could see rom-com? Mom says. Amanda, still thinking like a 15-year-old boy, asks why. I guess you are still thinking like your old self. Yes Mom, I am. Well Amanda, before your father left us for that bimbo, I was hoping to have another baby with him. Hopefully a girl, because every woman wants to have a little girl in their life. Mom, I'm going to give you some advice. Start dating, is my advice to you. I know you can ask Mr. James Watterson out to the singles dance next Saturday night. Mr. Watterson is 37 and single. How do you know this information? Mommy tells everyone that is on the track team at school. Mom, would it really hurt to ask? I guess not. Michelle thinks to herself, I can't believe that I am actually considering the advice of my 15-year-old child. On Wednesday after work, Michelle Burnsville asked Mr. Watterson if he would like to go to the singles dance on Saturday night. Mr. Watterson said, every time I ask a lady out it usually ends in a disaster, but this is the first time I was asked to be the date by a beautiful woman. I accept, he stated. Life was calm for everyone. My first date in years went well, even the chief was there and had a good time. 3 weeks went by. The chief said to me that her brother was on a work detail, and when the guards went to break up a fight he made his move and escaped. Do you know where he might go? He queried. Let me think a moment. He might go to our grandfather's old hunting lodge, which is on Blackberry Road, or the cave by Eagle Hill. I know where both places are, and walks over to the radio and puts out an all points advisory. 4 units respond, 2 took the hunting lodge and the other 2 took the cave. They all reported no signs of anyone. I said, Chief, I will go check by the school, he may feel more at home there. While I'm there I will inform Miss Slaughter to tighten security. Okay, the chief said. A few minutes later, Mrs. Burnsville pulls up to the front door of the school and walks into the school office and asks to see Miss Slaughter. The school secretary looked at me and said, Officer Burnsville, what brings you in today? It's business. So is Miss Slaughter in? Right now she is in the gym class right across the hall. Officer Burnsville went across the hall and entered the gym. Miss Slaughter asked her, what brings you here today, Officer Burnsville? My brother escaped during a work detail when a fight broke out. I see, Miss Slaughter said. I will make all the security guards aware of the situation. Officer Burnsville, with all the trouble lately because of the old principal, maybe they should move the police station right next to the school. Both women chuckled loudly at the statement. Suddenly a loud scream came from the track and soccer field and they ran down to ask what was going on. A young lady by the name of Lori said she saw Mr. Montgomery. Officer Burnsville took out her radio and called it in. A few teachers and students ran over. They all heard what Lori said. Amanda said, Mom, I thought he was in prison, looking confused. He escaped during a fight. 2 minutes later half the station showed up and started searching the area. In 8 a.m. after a thorough search of the area found nothing. Amanda, honey, right after school go straight home and call Mrs. Beatrice before you leave and have her meet you at the house. Okay Mom. Miss Slaughter said, since I don't live that far from you, Officer Burnsville, I can walk with her just in case he tries to grab her on her way home. Thanks, my mom said. Miss Slaughter, how have those boys been behaving? You mean the ones that made a pass at Amanda? Yes. They have been very well behaved. She whispers to her that about 40 boys are going through being petticoated. I see. Officer Burnsville said. I just have to ask, is there any way of getting into the school or any place one could stay that my brother would know about? Wait, the old emergency shelter has its own entrance. Let's get a few officers and check it out. Miss Slaughter led 10 officers over to the old shelter, and the door was clearly open, and the police went in and found that someone was living there. Officer Pierce checked the door that led into the school. It was unlocked. Between school security and the police, they started to search the entire place including the bathrooms. Security guards were posted at both locations of both doors. As Officer Jackson was going by a student at his locker, he saw a large amount of cash and a gun. The name of this student is Stephen Lance, who is in the 12th grade. Peers called for backup. We have a student who is armed with a gun and loads of cash. I am by the science class where we picked up Mr. Anthony. Miss Slaughter and Officer Burnsville rushed over to where Officer Pierce had him in the spread position. Mr. Lance, I'm going to call your parents right now. Miss Slaughter dialed his parents and said he was caught with a gun on school property along with tons of cash. With the school's permission, they cleared the locker and there was 2 kilos of cocaine and 2 kilos of weed. Well, that does it, Mr. Lance, you are hereby expelled. Officer Pierce, to remove and place this criminal under arrest, and Miss Slaughter, would you care to make a statement, young man? Officer Pierce asked him. Yeah, Mr. Lance said, I want my lawyer. Mr. Lance said sarcastically. Officer Pierce read him his rights and placed the cuffs on him. They left the school for booking. Miss Slaughter was looking towards the corner and to the right when she saw Mr. Montgomery and pointed. Officer Burnsville ran down the hall and grabbed her brother's wrist, as he tries to make a break for it by trying to punch her. He missed his sister. Again she slaps the cuffs on him and read him his rights. Charles, would you like to tell me why you want to hurt me? Like I said before, our parents only wanted a daughter, not a son, but had me first. So why did you turn my son into my daughter? His response was, I know he is most important to you. So by transforming him I would make you suffer. Well, it has brought us even closer together as mother and daughter, I believe. Don't be too sure of that, sis. Alright, I will take you to booking myself. Officer Burnsville and her brother arrived at booking. He was booked, searched and put in a cell. Officer Burnsville took about 2 hours to do all of the paperwork and filing. It was about 5:35 p.m. when she left the station that night. After arriving home, she could smell a good meal cooking. She said, Hi Amanda, what smells so wonderfully delicious? Hi Mom, tonight I made a pot roast with the help of Mrs. Beatrice. As if on cue, Mrs. Beatrice came out of the kitchen and said, Hi Michelle. Well Amanda, you can relax, your uncle is in custody again. A minute later, Mrs. Beatrice's daughter Emily came down the stairs and said hi to Mrs. Burnsville. Just after everyone traded the usual pleasantries, the doorbell rings. Michelle answered the door and saw a woman who she didn't recognize with what appeared to be a young lady. Can I help you? Mrs. Burnsville, I presume. Yes, my name is Mrs. Mason and this is my son Alexander. Is Amanda at home? Yes, come on in, Mrs. Burnsville said. Amanda, there is someone here to see you, she called out. Amanda comes to the door and sees Alexander and his mom. What brings you here today, Mrs. Mason? Well Amanda, my son has something to say to you, right? Alexander James Mason. Alexander swallows hard and says, Amanda, I'm really sorry for what I did, can you forgive me? Alex, Amanda says, I already have, forgiven you. Mrs. Mason said his petticoating at school may be over in a few days, officially, but not at home. Until further notice he will be wearing girls' panties and a bra under his regular boy clothes as a reminder. Mrs. Burnsville asked every if they had eaten yet. Mrs. Mason said yes and said, we only came over to apologize for what happened almost a month ago. She and her son left for home. Mrs. Beatrice, how come your other daughter Amanda isn't here? Well, Amanda is helping her grandmother out tonight. Ah, I see, well, good for her. Mrs. Beatrice, are you and Emily staying for dinner? Yes, if it's all right with you, that is. It is with me. After a great meal consisting of a pot roast with potatoes and peas and carrots plus a garden salad with ranch dressing, there was a butterscotch pudding and hot Earl Grey tea. The next morning Amanda went to her classes and I went into work and was told by the chief that I was due in court in 1 hour. Thanks, I said. I arrived at the courthouse on time and gave my statement deposition to the judge, who then sent him from a medium security prison to a maximum security prison. After her court appearance, she went back to the police station to fill out even more reports, including the supplemental information on her reports. After an uneventful day of work, she clocked out and went home. Hi Amanda, she said. Hi Mom, came from the living room. I hope you don't mind, by tonight I ordered pizza. Come on in and have a slice. Amanda, honey, I think we should talk. Sure Mom, what about? Well, first I want to know what you think of everything that has happened to you in the past month. I'm not sure what you mean. Well, your uncle told me by turning you into a girl it would cause a rift between you and me. I told him that you and I were becoming closer. I do want to know your feelings about the situation." "Oh, I see," Amanda says, "I know that we haven't talked about this yet. I'm with you on this. I really think we have become closer because of what happened. If I had to hate anyone it would be Uncle Charles for turning me into a girl. Well, at least I no longer get picked on because of how short I was as a boy." Both laughed at that. Suddenly the phone rings, and I answered it with "Hello. Yes, this is Dr. Roberts and I have the test results here. Could you come to my office so I can discuss the details with you and Amanda?" "Well, Dr. Roberts, this is Amanda and my mom is right here next to me. I don't like to discuss results over the phone, so please come on and I will be here until 8 p.m. "Alright, Dr. Roberts, we will be there in about 10 minutes. 10 minutes later we were there and Dr. Roberts plainly said, "As far as we are able to tell, Amanda, the chromosomes have become 20 and when we tried to take it back to Xi the cells were destroyed, so Amanda, your new womanhood is permanent." "I understand, Dr. Roberts, and thank you for telling us," Mrs. Burnsville said. After getting home from the doctor's office, Mrs. Burnsville went online and ordered a new certificate of birth for Amanda. The next morning Amanda went in to see Miss Slaughter and bring a copy of the medical results as well as the new certificate of birth. "Thank you, Amanda, for bringing it to my office. I will see that these are added to your school file." "You're welcome," Amanda says. Then Amanda had to hear classes.